Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name is Sean Mahill and I am a co-founder of virtualemployee.com. Today I've come to central London, King's Cross, to meet with Keystone Employment Group, an organisation with over 50 years of recruitment experience. Keystone Employment Group built with virtualemployee.com a full-fledged recruitment lifecycle web application, and I've come here to share with you their experience of hiring 3 senior software developers with us. So let's go inside now and meet with Malcolm from Keystone Employment Group. Firstly, Malcolm, I just want to say thank you for taking time out and agreeing to share your experience with virtualemployee.com with our viewers.
Yeah, that's okay. My pleasure.
Thanks. Could you first just start off by introducing yourself?
So I'm Malcolm Paice. I'm Chief Operating Officer of Keystone Employment Group. We're a recruitment firm that's been around for over 50 years and we offer online recruitment services as well as traditional recruitment services. We're based in London, but we do recruitment all over the UK and we do some internationally as well.
Okay, so what services did you avail from Virtual Employee and for how long?
So we started an entirely new project. We were building a whole new web platform, an enterprise recruitment platform. And we needed, started off with 3 full-time developers, a completely new product, a new business model. And we used Virtual Employee for around about 18 months from start to finish. To really build that product from the ground up. We engaged them from the beginning of the project right through until it was actually delivered at the end point. We needed front end and back end. This is an entire web service, so we needed people to build the user interface and work on the user experience and all that good stuff, as well as back end database developers as well.
Okay, can you tell me more about the application that you developed? My understanding is that it's not just a small web-based application, but rather it's a full-fledged web application that covers the entire or full recruitment life cycle.
Correct.
Could you just walk us through how it actually works?
That's right. It's a full end-to-end enterprise online recruitment portal. So companies, whether they're small or large, or even individuals, sole traders, can use the portal to register and to create a job vacancy. So they create their job specification and a job advert. The portal then sends that out to a number of resourcing tools, including social media, job sites, as well as tapping into our own database. And then it gathers all of the applications, all of the interested candidates, and creates a shortlist of candidates for the hiring manager. So it's a full end-to-end recruitment tool. It was also designed to be pay on demand. So typically recruitment is a B2B model where people have an account with a recruitment company, and that's quite a slow sort of analog process. Whereas with the Mint portal, anyone can register immediately. They can pay via PayPal or using a credit or debit card. So it's kind of making it a much more transactional based model.
Why did Keystone decide to develop this application? How is it different to what's currently in the market?
There are other web portals out there, but we were following a very, very different payment model. And in fact the business model itself is quite different to what else is out there. So our model is designed to be very much on demand. You don't have to open an account with us, you don't have to have an existing relationship with us. You can simply register, pay for the service there and then, and instantly access it. That's quite unique in the marketplace. Recruitment is still very much a B2B kind of open a credit account type of business model, so that payment on demand was quite new, and also the generation of a shortlist is quite unique as well. Ordinarily when someone is hiring a member of staff, they're presented with some CVs which they either sift through themselves to select their candidates, or they're presented with 1 or 2 people by a recruitment agency. What this is doing is taking large amounts of applications and whittling it down to a really solid, qualified shortlist that the person can hire from. And they can also hire more than 1 person for the same flat fee. It's a flat fee model, so whether they take 1 person or 3 from that shortlist, it's all for that same fee. So very, very good value for money for a business to recruit that way as well. So that's quite unique, quite different. And I think it was one of the first times that an enterprise solution like this has given people everything they need in one place to hire people without ever having to talk to a recruitment consultant at all.
Okay, so in short, the advantages of this enterprise application is that it's cheaper and it's faster.
That's it. Yep, streamlining the whole process. So a lot quicker from end to end, much lower cost, and you know what that cost is up front before you start the process. That's quite key.
Okay, what are some of the key functionalities of this software that you've developed? What can you do on it?
So right at the front end, I think that payment for the service that I mentioned a moment ago is quite key. So you can just pay via PayPal or a credit card to actually access the service. So all the fees are up front. You could pay for it that way. Registration is very straightforward. There's no pre-qualification. You just register. You write your job specification in the application. And then you upload it, and then some of the other functionality that we have in there is integration with some third-party services. So there are some APIs that were written to make the service work, and that's so we can seamlessly use external search engines, job sites, social media, so on and so forth. That's very helpful because it helps us gather in candidates from a large number of sources. And then one of the key bits of functionality is the sorting and filtering of a shortlist. That's quite a key part of the software, and then presenting that shortlist to the hiring manager in a nice user interface that allows them to very quickly have a look at the people that have applied in summary form. They could watch a short clip, a video clip that the candidate has made, or they can actually arrange to do a video interview all through the one application. So there's quite a varied range of functionality in there from start to finish.
So for the candidates who are conducting these video interviews, can they do them over their mobile?
They can do, yep. The main drive really is for short video clips. Video interviewing actually is still in its early days in many ways. People still like the face-to-face aspect of interviewing a candidate. But yeah, if they're doing a video interview or if they're uploading a clip, they can do it from any device. Very straightforward.
Third-party applications usually don't have robust documentation. So when you're creating custom solutions for your application, it can be challenging whilst integrating to third-party APIs, like I believe you did with Broadbean and Launchpad.
That's right.
Were those some of the challenges you experienced whilst developing this application, and what were some of the other challenges that you faced whilst developing this application?
Yes, it was seen as a challenge at the beginning of the project. Actually, those third-party integrations weren't the most challenging aspects, partly because firms like Broadbean, PayPal and Launchpad have got very well-established API. The virtual employee developers were well versed in writing to those. So they were a body of work. We expected those to be a pain point, but as it turns out they weren't. They went relatively smoothly. Some of the other challenges in terms of functionality was around that gathering of the shortlist that I mentioned a moment ago. That's quite a unique thing to do. There wasn't a template for the developers to follow. It was a new piece of functionality that in our view hadn't been done before. So that took quite a bit of creativity and an understanding from the developers to make that work. You can't just do it. You can't just write an algorithm that finds the best people in a list of maybe 100 candidates. So that took a lot of time and working through. But I think the solution we ended up with was quite nice, quite well refined.
Okay, and what were some of the languages that you used to develop this application, and what methodology did you use?
So front end, it's mostly C#. At the back end, it's a SQL database, so pretty common sort of languages. And the team that we utilised within Virtual Employee were clearly very experienced in those. So we didn't have any real concerns there.
Okay, and what methodology did you use?
We adopted Agile methodology. I think for a project like this, that worked best for us. There was, quite an intense front-end period of development, which then changed as we worked through the business sort of process. So that kind of, having regular scrums and updates with the developers over in India was very, very helpful. And then that plateaued out into sort of more refined debugging and so on and so forth further down the line.
Okay. You followed a service-orientated architecture. Why did you decide to take this approach?
Really for longevity reasons, to make sure that we had a service that could be supported easily, that we could append to later on, that we could adapt, we could modify, some of the process flows and how it hangs together. So support and flexibility really was the main approach there.
Malcolm, why did Keystone decide to offshore in the first place?
So we had a number of options which we considered. One option is to employ people here locally in London, have them in an office or perhaps working remotely, which takes time and money. It's despite the huge growth in technology in London, it's still very, very expensive to employ people on a part or full-time basis. You've got to have enough space to house them and manage them. So that would have slowed the project down and undoubtedly drawn some money away from the project that could have been used elsewhere. We're a London-based company. Wages are high. Real estate is at a premium. So housing. We had started off with 3 full-time developers with virtual employee, and having those based in London would have been expensive. But it's not just about cost. We also looked at just outsourcing it to a web development company. But that's very much a sort of, a project is delivered, you're given a price up front, you provide your specification, they'll deliver that, and then that's it, you tend to part company, which didn't really suit us either. We knew that because this is such a new business model that we were building, that it would change over time, and we didn't really want a web developer that would just deliver something and disappear into the sunset and charge very high fees thereafter. We knew that after the initial 9 months there would be changes that took place, and you have to kind of then embed it into your business and try to smooth over the ongoing support. And it could be very, very expensive. The cost of that outsourcing approach is usually the most expensive approach of all of them. So cost was a big factor, but I think flexibility was a bigger concern for us. We didn't want to do that simple outsourcing. Had we employed people in-house, it's not as flexible. You've now got 3 full-time or even part-time employees that they have to be managed. They've got to be nurtured and all of the management infrastructure that goes around that. So really, I think the virtual employee model was the perfect sort of compromise between those two. We had the control of having direct employees, but with lower costs. But moreover, we had flexibility. Over the course of the project, we went from 3 developers to 2 to 1. And that was just way more frictionless than it could have ever been if we'd employed those people directly. And as the project, was extended a little bit, it meant that we didn't have very high costs that we would have incurred from an outsourced third party. So a really good, meeting of those 2 worlds, I think, was the solution that we got there.
Okay. Were there also other hidden factors aside from cost that prompted you to consider offshoring? You're very experienced in the recruitment sector, so you know how the local market operates very well.
Absolutely. I mean, we know the technology recruitment market very well. That's part of our business. And we know how some of our clients often struggle to find and retain tech talent. It sometimes seems, it's a bit of an irony in a city like London, which has such spectacular growth in that sector, but we've also got some of the most acute shortages in tech talent. So, of course, it would have cost us more, but it would have also cost us time. We'd have had to have recruited that talent. We're the same as any other firm. We'd have to go out and find people that we think would work on this project, that would stick around and work on that project. Training people, you've got to invest time, effort and money there. So it's more than just the financial considerations, it's also the time that takes you. The technology sector, the workers command, high salaries in London. Cost of living in London is very, very high. And not many will want to stick around on a project once it's out of the exciting phase. They'll want to move on. The earnings in tech talent are quite high, so they can move from job to job and improve their earning capability and of course their experience. I think developers need varied experience to survive. So yeah, all of those things were in our mind. We've seen a lot of our customers struggle with retaining technology talent, and that was a challenge that we really didn't want as an additional body of work when we're doing a project as big as this. London's an interesting city at the moment for developers because technology is enjoying great growth, and yet there's a real problem with attracting tech talent. So it would have taken us probably a good couple of months to have found the right developers at the right salary. Then we would have needed to house them. We operate from quite small offices. A lot of our work is done online, so chances are they would have had to have worked remotely anyway. And of course, there's retention of tech staff. I mean, if you are the tech talent that London and so many other cities need, it is a seller's market. You can command a good salary, and you can decide to whether you stick around on a project or move on to a new interesting one. London is not short of new and exciting technology projects to work on. So retaining talent is often an absolute key consideration. On a project like this, we thought that there was a strong chance we would have difficulty retaining people after about sort of the 9-10 month period. When the main sprint of the project is over, we knew that we would need people way beyond that to refine it, develop it further, adapt to the market. So I think that it would have without a doubt taken us longer. It would have been more expensive. And I think retention of full-time staff would have been a bigger challenge.
Yeah, it's a very interesting point that you mentioned. I guess as a recruitment company yourselves, you have first-hand experience of what is happening here locally in the London market. Absolutely. And I just found that a very interesting point, actually, that it's one thing to acquire talented staff or talented software developers, but it's another to actually retain them for 18 months or 2 years.
Absolutely.
Because they are in such high demand, they can easily get job offers from other companies as well.
Correct, and that's not getting any easier because the supply of tech talent, particularly in London, is far outstripped by the demand for that talent. So if you are a good developer, you can afford to move around quite a lot. That's important for a developer to get lots of experience, and of course to boost their earning potential. And you're right, we're a recruitment company. We do a lot of recruitment in the technology space, and a lot of times our clients are asking us to not only find good developers but get good developers that will stick around for at least a year. It's hugely expensive to train and nurture new members of staff, and if you have to do that with talent that is difficult to find in the first place, you can just get caught in a never-ending cycle of incurring recruitment, management and training costs, and you only hold on to people for a short period of time. So it's a really an acute problem, and one that we wanted to avoid with the Mint project.
How would you compare scaling up and down with Virtual Employee as opposed to scaling up and down here locally in London?
A lot quicker and a lot less painless. I think that we started off with 3 full-time developers. That could have needed to increase. It didn't in the end. It was ample for what we needed. But if we had to have increased to 4, we knew that doing that in London would have taken time, and again would have we'd had to have paid quite a considerable salary to make that happen. And then of course you've got to worry about them fitting in with the team. That's another consideration that you've got to do at that stage. Scaling down, that also has its challenges. We knew that we started off with 3 developers. We were very, very in the intense development stage, and we knew that would reduce as the project did. If you are letting people go as the project starts to scale back, you could be looking at redundancy costs and all that entails. So absolutely, that degree of flexibility was a core part of our decision-making process. We quite after having 3 developers full-time for quite a long time, it got to the stage where we scaled that down to 2, and then scaled it back down to 1. And that process was again a lot more frictionless by doing it through Virtual Employee. rather than the processes that we'd have gone through if we were doing it locally. So yeah, whether a project gets larger or starts to scale down in size, that sort of flexibility is key, and there are hidden costs attached to it. It's not necessarily cheap or easy to scale up or down over the life cycle of a project like that. And I think you also can get bogged down in some of the other things that are happening in your organisation. I think almost having the employees at arm's length was beneficial, because it meant that we could really take a step back and say, right, this project is at the stage where it only now needs 2 people on it, so let's scale it back. I think that inevitably what happens if you directly employ people is there's a greater chance of mission creep, that those people end up working on other things. I don't think it's as easy to be as objective about the job that people are doing and what you're paying to get that job done. So I think that was a really helpful aspect of having employees at arm's length. There's attachments that just happen that you've then got to, that could be quite painful when you've got to scale it down. And I think being able to go from 3 to 2 to 1 developers, as we did over the full sort of 9 months, was key. It was an important part of making sure the project came in on time, and that the phasing of the project was kept clean. Otherwise, I think that there could have been a risk that we were still overstaffed at points where the project didn't really require us. So it was absolutely a key consideration, that scaling up and scaling down. It was very, very painless with Virtual Employee. We were able to take very objective decisions about when we moved from 3 developers eventually down to 1, and it just kept our decision making very, very clean without some of the other issues that can affect you with full-time employees and of course the legislation that is there to protect them.
I thought, even aside from the legislation point of view, you made a very interesting point about being able to scale down staff. Could you just expand on that, because that's the first take that I've really had on that. So how does having somebody sitting next to you sometimes impact your decision making on a project like this?
Well, I think it's almost inevitable. Human nature is that if we have staff, we want them to be busy, that we want them to be engaged, and we want them to be, flexibility in a member of staff is something that everyone looks for. So I think without a doubt what happens is with any employee, particularly good employees, is that there is that mission creep. There is other tasks that start to fill their day, and that probably ought not to be the case. If you have brought in some resource specifically to work on one project, you can very easily get lost in what that project is costing you if you have a developer that's doing some other things on the side for you, which is very easy with developers to do. We have a number of technology projects, and had we had someone in our building, I'm pretty sure that we'd have said, oh, actually, C#, let's get you to have a look at this. Now, that's one aspect to it. That's where you can sort of you can drift from the original project brief. The other aspect to it is just about human relationships. As I say, we have a core team of about 15 full-time members. If you bring 3 people into that team, we all like to get on as a business, and friendships form and relationships form. And again, when it comes to having to scale a project down, none of us like to be too mercenary about, well, that's it, we have to sort of break the team up. But I think it is just a lot harder to remain objective when you've brought those people in, and you're engaging with them in ways other than just the project at hand. And what it enabled us to do, looking at this project, is we knew the various phases. When it moved out of that initial first sort of sprint period of very intensive development, and the product was really starting to get well formed, we knew we had to take it from 3 down to 2, that we were very acutely aware of the costs attached to the project at that stage. And then again, when we went from 2 down to 1, it just allowed us to take just a much more objective view of where the project was at, what it was costing us, and the resource that we could realistically attach to it ongoing. So that weaning off of resource is always a difficult thing to do. We're all compassionate human beings, but doing that when the employees are kind of at arm's length just makes the whole process just much more straightforward.
How much cost saving would you then estimate that you saved perhaps per developer per year?
It's a tricky one to fathom, because I think had we employed people directly, I think that, as I said before, there's lots of hidden costs that get bundled in when you start employing directly. And of course, compared to quotes that we had from a complete outsourced solution, it was dramatically cheaper. So, but to answer your question, compared to had we employed the people ourselves, we think it's somewhere in the region of around about £40,000 a year. Possibly a lot more, but I think if we're on the conservative side, that's where we think it saved us money. And of course, that's money that we can put elsewhere into the project, into promoting it, marketing it, getting it to market and actively selling it. That's a sizable chunk of a budget that we then use to push the service out there. So somewhere in that region.
How were the results of working with Virtual Employee?
Well, the project came in on time and on budget, which is kind of job done from that perspective. I think if you hit those two markers, then you're in pretty good shape. I think the product was actually more refined than we had originally set out. There was some additional functionality added in that we hadn't expected right at the beginning of the project. That's what happens. We had good creative people working on the project that suggested, how we could improve things. If you look at, our original brief, what we set out to do, it changed along the way. That's the trouble with projects, is that 9 months in a modern business is a long time. The market changes, price points change, dynamics change. So being able to be flexible mid development, take that agile approach was really important. But we got all the functionality we wanted, with some more that we didn't have in our original brief. We came in on budget. The project was delivered on time, and we successfully took it out to market. So from that perspective, it was a very good experience.
So with the benefit of hindsight, let's say perhaps you had taken this project to an outsourcing company, whether based here locally in the UK or abroad. What would you say was the advantage of our model over traditional outsourcing models, where you're pretty much giving control to the vendor? If you want to make any changes 9 months down the line, you have to go into kind of negotiations with them. What was the difference in experience for Keystone working with Virtual Employee as opposed to that traditional model?
It really is about control and flexibility, because if you just give somebody a set of user requirements and they give you a price, they will go and build that. It's rare to find an outsourced company that can give you the degree of flexibility that you need, coupled with control. On the control aspect, an outsourced company, that just gives you a price. They will do it the way that they see it done, and then they will deliver it to you as the customer. You don't really have a day-to-day management control over that. That could be quite a painful experience if you're trying to manage the way that another company delivers a product to its customers. That can be the struggle, I think. But the flexibility is key. Is that I know now that some of the changes that we needed to make as the project developed, that would have translated with a typical outsourced company into another fee. Okay, we'll make that change for you, but here's another cost for that. Here's another cost for that, and pretty quickly we'd have bust the budget for the project. I'm pretty sure. So I think it is those two things: control. Having the level of control as if you're managing it yourself with people in-house, but with the flexibility to change some things, get some other things done that you might not have done, without just constantly having an outside company re-quoting and repricing for everything. I think those are the big points there.
Okay, so would you agree that hiring virtual employees is like hiring in-house resources, but just in-house resources that are based offshore? Yeah,
there's no difference at all, really, other than it's less burdensome on an organisation in terms of people management and costs and all the things that are associated with taking people on full time. But the level of control, the way that you interact with your staff is really no different. The level of influence that you have is no different. You are managing that process. Your employees are delivering it. The only difference is that they're not in your building and they may not necessarily be in your country. But as I say, virtual employee are well versed in that. They know how to act as employees overseas. So that just made our job managing the whole process.
Why did you partner with Virtual Employee over perhaps one of our competitors?
When we were looking at the market, we wanted a proven ability above all else. But I think from a technical development perspective, I think Virtual Employee had a very good proven track record. We didn't have to guess whether or not it was going to work. I think the level of experience and some very, very positive feedback from other people that had used Virtual Employee on similar types of projects, that was what really clinched it.
How did Keystone find working with software developers remotely? Was it seamless, or was there any inefficiencies in the process?
We were worried at first. We had concerns, the usual concerns over things like language barrier, time difference, just remoteness, just having people remote. But I think, again, it comes down to experience. I think that the developers at Virtual Employee are very, very experienced in working that way. We weren't, as the client. The first time we had worked with developers based overseas, but because that's what these developers do all the time, they were very well versed in it. So communication was superb. Some of the best communication we've ever had on a project like this. We used Skype calling and email very effectively. So communication was probably greater than if I'd had local developers. But I think that the guys at Virtual Employee, they make a particular point about keeping you informed every step of the way. So every single day we're getting updates, even if we don't have a Scrum session or a discussion with the developers, we would still get a daily summary. No matter what had happened, even if it had been a relatively light day in terms of development. So communication was excellent. The deliverables, measuring what was getting delivered on a week-by-week basis was very clear. We were never in the dark about how the project was moving forward. So we had concerns early on, but actually it was quite a painless process. Having the Virtual Employee developers worked on UK time, so there was no issues there. That was something I hadn't reckoned on. But no, working on UK time really made the whole process a lot easier.
Why did you decide to offshore to India over other outsourcing destinations like Eastern Europe or the Philippines?
It was really about experience, experience in working in this space. I think that the people we had based in India very, very quickly proved themselves to be very experienced in working in this way. They had the skill set. That's absolutely vital, and they had the skill sets available in an abundance. So if we needed to scale up and get more people, we knew that the skill sets were available and available quickly, and we could add people on and drop them off in a short period of time. So that was the main factor. I don't know if we'd have outsourced to somebody in South America. I don't know if they would have had the level of experience that the guys in India have. They're very, very well versed in working in this way.
Aside from the virtual employees that you worked with, how was your experience of working with virtualemployee.com as a whole?
It was very good, very painless. I think they take customer service very seriously. Sometimes as a client you can be a bit awkward, you're asking for things that are a bit of a challenge, but they were always very, very receptive, always very helpful, and did everything they could to make it work for us. Both in the beginning, when it was a very intense full-time project with 3 developers on, and as we started to scale it back. They made life as easy as possible for us. Great organisation for customer service. Communication again was very, very good. They're very good at keeping us informed of everything that was happening and very responsive. So again, they worked on UK time, so whenever we had a query or any issues cropped up, we always got very, very good responses. No problems at all.
What were the advantages of working with virtualemployee.com?
I think it really comes down to control. You have complete control over the project, the same as if you directly employed the people yourself, but you have flexibility. I mean, that's a key thing that is very difficult to get with just an outsourced third-party provider. Being able to completely control the project, having the flexibility to scale the number of employees up or down, being able to take the project off in different tangents, the same as what happens in businesses, things change, decisions change. Being able to do that without the project getting thrown into disarray, I think it's those 2 things, control and flexibility. The whole process really reduced a lot of risk from the project from our point of view. There's a lot of risk in any project, and the benefits that we got from virtual employees sort of neutralised a lot of those risks.
Okay, would you recommend virtualemployee.com services?
I absolutely would. As I said before, I think that where you as a client might have some reservations and be a bit nervous about it, I think that the experience that Virtual Employee have fills that gap. For us, it was a first for Virtual Employee. They'd done it many, many times, which really helped the process along. So I absolutely would recommend it. It's a good model, and I think that they're one of the best at what they do. I think with Virtual Employee, there's a great degree of capability there, great degree of experience, and it really isn't that different to just having your own employees in-house. It's all of the benefits of that that you have of having your own direct employee, but without some of the cost and the risk and lack of flexibility that you might have if you employed people directly. So I would definitely say to give it serious consideration, particularly on a project base. If you've got a project in hand, I think it's a really good way of reducing risk from it.
Is there anything else you would like to add for the benefit of our viewers?
I would. I think that we were a bit cautious about this sort of overseas virtual employee model. We weren't sure about it. We weren't sure if it would work, and of course you see that as a risk. But what I would say to anyone thinking about taking this approach is that actually this process removed risk for us. It removed risk of us having full-time employees that maybe wouldn't have worked out. It removes the risk of going massively over budget because you retain control. And it removes the risk of that sense of being held to ransom by an external third party, where you can end up in a battle with a supplier that's not delivered what you thought or what they promised to deliver at a very high cost. So what I would say is put your mind at rest about some of the things associated with it, about it being remote and overseas, and think about those risks that you remove from the project by using the virtual employee model.
Okay, well, Malcolm, I'm glad to know that your experience with us was a good one. I just want to say again, thank you for taking time out today and sharing your experience with our viewers.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
Thanks.
In conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, I thought Malcolm raised a lot of interesting points in this case study, but two really stood out for me. The first was about keeping a hold of talented employees. When we are expanding our teams, we often think in terms of just accessing good talent. But when you're based in a high-tech city like London, it's often equally as challenging to keep a hold of talented employees. The second point was about capacity planning and how Malcolm said when some of your staff are at arm's length, it's often easier to make objective decisions. So please do keep in mind that offshoring is not always just about cost saving. There are additional advantages too, such as increased scalability, having that management burden taken away for you, and being able to keep a hold of talented staff. Thank you very much for watching this case study, and the best of luck with your future offshoring endeavors.